of council to order, Monday, April 25th, 2022. Approval of the agenda, please. Councillor Kirkowka.
That the Monday, April 25th, 2022 special budget council meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
Seconder. Councillor Lehman. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. New business 3.1 2022 operating capital and special project budget update. A report from the Director of Finance dated April 25th, 2022 to provide council updated information on the 2022 operating capital and special projects budget and to provide an update on the capital year-end carry forward account. Ms. Torval, would Ms. Tegerty like to introduce this at all?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and welcome back.
Thank you.
So tonight, I just there's a few things I wanted us to. I wanted to bring back the revised draft. Just to let you know, there are a couple of things that were changed. We did have some additional tax revenue, which was related to the revised roll. So I added that in, around 17,000, and then there were some changes related to year ends, which I explained in my report. The PRA funding for the loader, I was hoping to defer the revenue, but the auditors wouldn't let me. So I had to remove the grant money for the loader and then bring it back in as surplus. So you'll see I did highlight in green if I'd made any changes. So if Mayor and Council, as we go through, if there's any questions you have on any of the green things, that's because I have made a change.
Okay.
And then the other thing I wanted to bring back was capital, because capital does impact, obviously, surplus and where the money's coming from for capital, because I felt that one, council maybe needed the reminder, because it's been a while. That was back in March when I brought the first draft. So I explained, obviously, the projects that were approved, and obviously the ones that had pre-approvals. But then I also removed the childcare because that was quite a large project. So I don't know how council would like to. I know there was lots of questions from the last meeting. I thought maybe if council would like to start there, and then if there's any, if you're okay with the questions, the answers to the questions, or you've got anything else that you wanted to ask related to them.
Certainly.
We could do that.
Certainly, yep. Council, any clarification on anything? Questions? Councillor Howe?
In the previous draft, the first draft that we had of the budget, we had a number of about 6.675 million for special and capital together. And then the updated capital is about 6.2. Is that just the difference of the 4 or 5 things that are removed in number 2 of your report? The washrooms and the pump track parking, the Bobcat?
Yes,
that's the difference.
Correct. Yeah, there was those differences, and then there was also when I did year ends, I had some. I had the what's called the water replacements. Capital was in there as a carryover, but then during year ends, I was able to. I realised I had the invoices that had come in, so I was able to close off that project, so that wasn't brought in. And then there was the rail export project carryover amount was, I want to say it was overstated, but I was able to, I realised that there were some invoices I could remove in 2021 as well. So I kind of tidied that up.
Perfect. Follow up, Councillor?
Yeah, so we no longer have a budget shortfall?
We do still have a budget shortfall, and
75, I think it is. 78.
yeah, and so I'd like to kind of get to that one when I come and talk to you a little bit about the PRA funding, if that's okay.
Okay.
If we could do the questions and answers first, get that kind of done, and then we can move on to the PRA funding. So I've also brought the capital carryover here too, which I feel I really would like council to go through the list, because I feel that some surplus within that code could be released. So that's on page, sorry, lots of pages.
Yeah.
On page 29. I discussed with council and council before, and there are projects on there from 2019, so I thought it'd be quite nice to kind of get that one tidied up, and then if there's any surplus, this is essentially surplus, it's the benchmark for holding these projects, but if they need to be released, then that could then be offset against the shortfall.
Mhm. Ms. Tegarty, does it doesn't show the years of these in the capital and special projects on page 28? You said there was some from 2019?
If you go to the left-hand side, so at the start where the balance came in at 1.8 million, so the 2019, page 29 of 86.
Oh, I see, okay.
So yeah, the top part is 2019 projects that were put in the 2019 capital budget, and then 2020, and then 2021. So last year, in our 2021 financial statements, any of the money that got used for a capital project from here, that's been transferred out. So I transferred those amounts out during the financial statements.
Okay.
So I do think, council can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that the residential development items on there probably need to stay.
Yeah, I would think so. Just a quick glance here, the bin wrapping project, we haven't talked about that for quite some time. Councillor Norbury?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we shot that down. The only thing that we were thinking about doing with that was looking at the electrical bins. I think there's only 5, and we're looking at more of a painting versus a wrapping project because it was thought that was just too much money to spend.
Mm.
So that's my recollection. Probably removed. Do you need,
Councillor
do we
Norbury?
need to do motions on these, or?
Yes, please.
That would be great, please.
Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I'll make a motion to remove the bin wrapping project from the 2019 capital year-end carry forward.
Seconder? Councillor Kirby, discussion? Councillor Howell?
Just so I'm clear on this is money that we set aside in 2019, approved it in council, didn't complete the project. The money is sitting available to do the project for whatever reason. So we're going to go on recollection. That's what we're going to do here tonight. Why we didn't do these projects, and then take that money. That's what the process is here.
It's basically asking council if we want to continue with these capital year-end carry forwards or use the money that's allocated for these projects to go against our shortfall.
Sure, and the reason I ask is where my confusion lies in is something like rural residential development, 2019, we've got a $409,000 amount that we said we were going to spend. We spent $275,000. We have a $133,000 balance. 2020, we've got $416,000 there again. Is that because we actually were going to purchase another piece of land, or why is that money in there? That's what my concern is doing this based on recollection. I think the bin one sounds right, but my concern is we're doing this on council's recollection of why we set that money aside. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's what my concern is we're trying to do it based on memory.
Okay. Councillor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor. I think the problem with the bin wrapping was it ended up, if I recall, was almost $60,000, and we thought that was too much. That's why it was scrapped.
Any other comments, questions? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Ms. Torval, where are we at with the Public Works building envelope? We haven't moved forward on this at all, so it's still a placeholder?
It is still a placeholder.
Councillor Howell?
Curbside recycling, what's the idea on that one there? $77,000 we were gonna put forward to curbside recycling. We're already doing curbside recycling. What was that money for?
Ms. Torval?
Mrs. Haggerty? To Mayor and Councillor Howell, it's a good question, and I just did put my hand up there to say that, and don't feel pressured, like, I'm not saying that if like, staff could bring back at a later date, but if there was something on here that you felt that needed to be removed, but I think if there's something on here that you have more questions on, then we can bring, we can bring that back. That isn't gonna impact the budget.
Right.
This is kind of money sat there in a reserve, in a placeholder, or I say a reserve in general surplus, but it has a place, it has an account, so it's council's decision if they want me to remove anything.
Right. And
I won't feel comfortable unless you feel comfortable.
for sure. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. And the reason why I mentioned the bin wrapping thing, because I was really, sorry, I'm not trying to bring up, old issues, but like I was really in favor of it, so it really stuck out in my mind. And and I remember the overwhelming, like, no, let's not do this, and I bought into that. So that's the reason why I'm suggested that one. That was we can go back and look at the tape. I have no doubt it was pretty resounding. This is too expensive.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was double the estimate.
But do you
for
think
sure.
we could get back information on what the curbside recycling budgeted amount is for?
Mhm.
Motion?
Please?
I make a motion to ask for a report on what the $76,991.61 is for curbside recycling on the capital year-end carry forward list.
Seconder?
Ooh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm reading the top. It should be 2020.
Yes, you're correct, 2020.
Amendment?
No, you don't need a seconder still. Seconder? Councillor Kirkowka? Discussion? Yeah, I honestly don't know what that money was set aside for. Not sure. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Councillor Kirkowka?
Just like the airport upgrades, my understanding is we've done some already lighting, a new building out there. What would the other 300,000 be set aside for?
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Haggerty, do you have information on that one?
So, Councillor Kirkowka, I feel like I've seen something within the capital plan with PRA funding. So again, I probably would want to give you a little bit more information, but I feel like there was planning. We did the lighting, and then I think they were planning to do something else, another large project. So I think this is why this went in the budget in 2020.
Councillor?
Do you think it'd be asphalt?
It could, yeah, that asphalt replacement probably.
But that was, I believe, in the $7 million range, not
Yeah,
300,000.
That's what I'm kind of curious, right? We've done so much out there, lighting, the building.
Possibly a placeholder to build a reserve for that, I'm not sure. Councillor Norbury?
Could it potentially be holdbacks on work that's been done out there? No.
I don't think the terminal building was even that much total project, so. Yeah, that would be a good one to know. I'll make a motion for council to direct staff to prepare a report on the details of the airport upgrades in the 2020 capital year-end carry forward for $300,551.85. Seconder, Councillor Kirby. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Signage signage is complete. Councillor Howe?
So wouldn't it be advisable just to ask staff to give us information on what all these are for? This is, again, my concern about memory as compared to facts. So if staff is able to come back and say to us, like, the land one is interesting to me because it shows almost $800,000 set aside for land. And I know that we had set some purchases aside that we were going to do, and what has been purchased and what hasn't at this time. That if they come back and they say, yeah, we actually have half of a 50-acre lot, and we have the area behind the Saddle Club bought and paid for, that's the money that we'd set aside to actually purchase the land. Should we choose to move forward on doing something else that would be in an additional budget down the road for, say, running power in there or water, sewer, or something like that, that would be another budget down the road. So the money is set aside for all the purchases we wanted to make. We can throw that money back into out of this into general reserves. Is that where we go?
From this, this is sitting in general reserve with a name tag on it, I guess. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. My only concern about is getting reports on all these things when it seems like a few of them are like pretty self-explanatory, and like with staff spending all that time to do reports for every single one, I don't know, it seems like we already know what the signage is and the asset management is. Well, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but I mean, if we want to know more about the rural, it seems like the less we do, the better off, because I know staff's really busy right now. Like, we are in the middle of budget. Like, it seems if we want to be targeted, it makes more sense.
I think it all could come into one report. We just need to identify which ones we need more information on.
That makes sense.
Questions, comments, council? Councillor Howe?
Yeah, so in our previous budgets, like I have my previous budget from 2021 here, and it would tell you what you had in the budget, like what we set that money aside for. I'm just trying to find another budget for an example. So I understand where you're coming from, Councillor, and I don't want to put any more load on staff either. If staff feels that this is a lot of work to do this, maybe we set this aside and wait till budget is done and then come back to it and ask it to be looked at or whatever. I understand we're under timelines, major time constraints right now. We're only scratching the surface on budget. So, if it's very difficult to find out what this money is set aside for, I don't think it should be. But if it is going to be very time consuming, maybe we should move on from it. And I don't know what time consuming is to staff. If it's more than half a day's worth of work, then that's definitely not worth it in my mind.
Ms. Torval, any comments?
I'll ask Ms. Taggarty in her time. It's like,
Mayor and Council, I appreciate you thinking about staff time, and it will take a while, I think, to go through each thing. One, not being here. Two, and yeah, I did the same thing. I went through some of my budgets, the ones that I thought I could find quite easily. But then I think others require a little bit more work. For instance, the land, I would have to do a lot of research on that. So if it's okay with council, if you can give me any that you feel that you want to remove now, and then all the others, I would like to bring a report back and explain what they were for.
Okay, I think we've picked off the low-hanging fruit there. The Economic Development and Investment Program. Ms. Torval, any comments on that?
I'll ask Ms. Finnegan.
Thank you.
Shed some light on that for you. Ms. Finnegan.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Again, not having been here when that was set, my understanding is that was set aside to do another investment attraction strategy or study. I did have a chat with CEO Ms. Thompson when I first arrived, and given the amount of work still left in the current strategy, it would probably be better to do the strategy next year or budget for it next year. I certainly wouldn't see any benefit in doing a study this year. There's enough resetting and recovery going on that'll keep us busy. So my understanding that was a strategy.
Okay. And in Ms. Torval, in Ms. Finnegan's opinion, you don't believe it's needed this year? Okay. Councillor Howe?
Pump replacement project in 2020 appears like it's already been done, so that one should be removed.
Yeah, I believe so. Ms. Torval?
Yes.
And I'll make a motion to the Economic Development and Investment Program from the 2020 capital year-end carry forward. Seconder, Councillor Norbury. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions, Council? Okay, so getting back to the questions that were submitted, is there any of these questions that Council would like further information on? Page 6. Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. My question about cost recovery for the summer kids camp and programs. I'd like to know the cost. We do a lot of programming through the community center, and I know we reach out to other groups and find out how if you're getting cost recovery. I'd like to know what the district is providing or is costing for some of the programs we have going on at the community center. It makes for good debate, because we offer a lot of services that we're not charging for, and I'm not saying that we have to, but I just think it's good to know what the district is providing to the residents and the cost.
Ms. Torval, is there anywhere in the budget that accounts for this in the community center budget?
Program.
Mhm.
Staggerty?
So Mayor and Council, and it was something I spoke earlier to Councillor Kirby. It's something I think we should do. Again, it would be good if I could have a placeholder for that.
Yeah.
Maybe something to look at in the summer and kind of look at those cost recoveries.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor. Just the heat recovery system in the rec center. We're gonna save 50, it says 50,000 on natural gas, but because we're using a heat pump, obviously we're gonna be using electricity. So I'm just wondering where we're gonna end up, but I guess we won't know until probably the end of, I would say next year, when we have an idea of what it's gonna, what the difference is in electrical costs. So I'm just, it'd be interesting to see just how much it does save in the end.
Yeah, I think I read 65% decrease in natural gas. That's significant. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. On page 28 of 86, under fire hall facility, the assessment study, can staff remind me, now was this cost to get a report on what the upgrades are needed, and then it would be for grants? I can't remember what this cost is.
Ms. Torval?
Chief Curry? Would you like to speak to that?
Mayor and council, excuse me. So the fire hall facility assessment study was the recommendation that came out of the fire services master plan to look at our current fire hall and training facility and provide information to council so they can make a decision whether it is to renovate the current fire hall or build a new one. So that's going to be all in that, including architectural drawings and things for you to consider.
Follow up?
I guess my question is do we need this assessment, and can we do it on our own? Just,
Ms. Torval?
Chief Curry?
Mayor and council, short answer is no. We don't have the current capabilities in-house to do this. When you start considering WorkSafe BC standards and all of that other kind of stuff, in terms of NFPA and training requirements, everything, it gets very technical. And for me to take a lot of my time and try to put this towards this project isn't feasible for us at the time.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Hall?
So there was a question on page 6 of 86 about the parks budget. So wasn't a park reserve, it was just an amount that we used to set aside every year for repairs to parks, not necessarily a reserve, like it was in our 5-year plan going forward. But maybe did it stop during our 5-year plan? Like, I don't know if it was 2020, it was supposed to go to 2025. Would it stop in 2025 if we didn't renew it?
Every 5-year plan is renewed every year with the new budget.
Right, but like if that part wasn't added to it, like how we would lose that
Mhm.
line item that was in there? Because it used to be $50,000 all the time. And like this is talking about a reserve for it in particular, but what I'm talking about is slightly different.
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Taggerty?
And Councillor Howe, I know I was a bit confused because I've worked in other municipalities and we've had parkland reserves. And that was my confusion. I thought maybe, and I went to the reserves to
Gotcha.
take a look and I was like, no, I can't see anything for parklands. So did you feel that there was 50,000 put away?
We
Or
just,
we were just
in our budget every year, we've always had $50,000 in there
expense?
Yes.
Expense every
that we
year.
were going to spend to upgrade the parks in the community.
So, okay, so that should have been, but I would put that in a reserve because, so you're thinking that, oh, and it could be in surplus. So that, I could add that to my list for capital as a look back and see.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't see it in the budget, that's why I was asking about it, so
And did you see it in last year's budget?
I can't remember
Okay.
right now.
Councillor Kirkowka?
Yeah, I was listed under playground equipment replacement. That's what it was listed under in the budget, it was playground replacement.
Okay,
So the committee went around, we started replacing equipment at certain parks. Maybe they've completed all the parks in the area. Maybe.
they could have, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Kirkowka, did you have another question?
No.
No? Okay.
Councillor Hobson.
Right. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Howe?
So I do have a question about our amount that we are budgeting for wages, DTR, and the increase that has seemed to have happened in wages in the last 3 or 4 years. I see about $1.2 million increase in wages in the district of Tumbler Ridge since 2020. I understand that an amount of that would be for some new staff positions that have been created. But when do we ever have actual discussions about creating new positions within the DTR for hourly employees? Because how can we go up $1.2 million and that be left on council's plate without a discussion of how we've ever got that increase? So to go from $5.2 million in wages in 2020 to a budgeted amount of 6.37 in 2022 is an increase of $1.2 million in wages. How is this getting out of control? It's out of control in my mind. What can we do to have a discussion about that to see if there's any way we can dial some things back? I went through the second budget that was presented to us line by line, and I see areas in there where we have somebody budgeted for $80,000 in 2020. We spend that in roughly that amount in 2021. 2022 is now budgeted for double that amount. Are we actually hiring another person in those departments? And because we haven't picked that out specifically at that time during budgets, that it's just pushed through and we don't know about it because they've created an additional position in the DTF. How is this getting so high?
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Haggerty? Sorry. Ms. Haggerty, can you speak to it?
And councillor to councillor Howe. I mean, I obviously know that there's been positions ratified during the year, so I know those positions came out of the closed meeting. So I can only comment on those. As far as, I mean,
Just staff positions, correct?
staff positions,
Right,
yeah.
not hourly positions, right?
Yes, staff
Okay.
positions, yeah. I know from the budget point of view, if you're looking at the budget in 19,
Mr. Secretary, excuse me. Can we get
Councillor
a little
Mulgrew.
clarification on what Councillor Howe means by hourly employees versus budgeted employees, like,
So staff.
Staff or
Staff
or
salary?
management positions?
It's staff management positions as compared to union hourly wages.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know what, there's no breakdown on what, I know that we have to approve, we are supposed to approve any staff position or any management changes in the budget previous to the year moving forward. We're supposed to have seen those before budget's approved, and we're supposed to know what they are. But if there are hourly positions that have changed through the budget that is just being added, and there's no discussions of it, how do we capture that and stop that? Does that make sense?
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Haggerty?
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'd just like to correct something, and talking to my CEO here. So the things that were ratified, they were hourly as well. It wasn't just, so my correction, it wasn't just, there was some hourly positions as well. So council are aware of those.
I guess the biggest question is for all of us council is, you know, if anyone had asked us that our wages have gone up $1.2 million in a year and a half, I don't think any of us fully are aware of where that $1.2 million is. We can account for less than half of it, but not even close to the 1.2. So we're really wondering where the heck this came from, Ms. Torval. That one? Yeah.
Councillor Howe's.
Mayor, council, there was a report presented to council in a closed session.
Mhm.
Back in- a few months ago. No.
Okay. Councillor Hall.
And I don't know what's in closed and what's out of closed and whatever, I think those three positions are out of closed at this point, but those three positions represent about $360,000 in wages and benefits. And, which again, I was not in favor of any of those positions. I'll give you an example of one area that I have concern of in the budget, because it looks like we're getting pretty close to a balanced budget, but we're not. There's a whole bunch of things in here that we're not accounting for spending in 2022. An example on page 34 of 52 in this, I don't know which number this is in our packet. This is the one that's left on the desk. I don't know whatever, I don't know if it's the same numbers in our agenda or not, but.
What are you looking at?
It won't be the actual page in your agenda, it will be the page that's referenced towards the draft 2 of the document.
What are you referencing?
Sorry, I'm on page 34 of 52. So that doesn't line up with that, sorry, I apologize. This one here. So I don't know how to find this one again. Draft 1? Okay. Right. So for instance, janitorial, right? We don't have it budgeted in 2021, somehow.
Yeah, can I?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So janitorial you were
It's
asking
just
about?
like, it's not, it wasn't budgeted in 2021, there was zero budget, but we managed to spend $21,000 in janitorial and town hall, for instance. That's one example, right? And then we don't have it budgeted again in 2022, so
Yeah.
therefore, where's the money coming from?
There's multiple examples of that where they're starting to account wages to each department there. So that I noticed that as well, reading through it, where we didn't budget any wages. We added the wages in actual, but then we didn't budget again for any wages next year. So I think that's something that worked in progress for Ms. Tegrity, but Ms. Tegrity, if you could explain, please.
To Mayor and Council, I don't know whether you probably remember, because I know there's quite a lot to take in. So some code changes happened, facilities being one of them. And I totally understand why that was put in place. It got put in place before I got here, because we wanted to see what we're spending on those areas. Unfortunately, the budgets haven't got a full year of budgets. So I've made the decision, I'm going to let the actuals go in. And then when we do 2023, then I have a real budget to work with. So the budget's in, but it's in the community centre, which is how it always was.
So it's looped in.
So we're essentially pulling it out of there. I mean, I could try and get to work on it now, but I feel that then we're going to miss the tax rate deadline. So yeah.
So the budgeted wages are budgeted in the community center conglomerate, I guess.
Yes.
And then we're starting to pull them out into each department. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're trying to show.
Okay.
I think that was something. I think it's a good thing. We're trying to show what our facilities cost. Whereas before, the community centre got everything lumped in together, and then it's hard then for council to see what these areas are costing us.
Right.
This is the plan. Unfortunately, it's made for a little bit of a piecemeal budget, but I'm confident the costs are in there in community services.
So the wages overall are being budgeted for. They're just not.
In total, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, in total, the wages are budgeted for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
then there was that, Mayor Bertrand, as you said, there was that shift from showing where people are working and where their costs should be coded to. And we can look at changing how we budget wages once we have the history for a couple of years and change that within Questica.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Howe?
Yeah, so, and I understand now what you're doing with it. I mean, one of them being facilities, admin, salary. It appears that there's nothing in the budget previous years, but now we're $94,000. So it's tough in my position as a councillor, and I appreciate the way you're going. It's going to be easier for the next councils coming. But it's tough for me as a councillor to sit back and read through this entire document, line by line, and try to get some flavor of where we've overspent on, not overspent necessarily, but the money that we've spent in wages and where is that going to, and is it justified? So to me, there's a major concern there still for me of how high our wages have increased. There's not an explanation, I don't think, besides the 3 staff positions that were voted for later on. It's the continual increase, I think, of the things that we always think that aren't going to cost anything. You know, where we go and build a geo-interpretive center gets built, but we have to do the janitorial, we have to do the maintenance, we have to do this. So a new person, quarter of a person gets hired, and then we do some new trails and we want the trails cleaned, and another half a person gets hired. And these things, there are some of that stuff that's in our control. We don't have a true cost on those things when we do them, and perhaps don't think about them. But to me, I don't see an increase in our community of 25% between 2019 and now of what we've needed that much more spending. And so to me, those are the tough questions. We're close to a balanced budget at this point, but how are we close when our wages have got that high? Is it because we've collected that much more in taxes? Is it because we've got more money coming in through the PRA? I don't know, but to me, do we need to continue spending money like that? Is there any flavor in council to lower the amount of money that we're spending in wages? There is for me. And are we too far into this budget process now to say, hey, what can we do to cut back on wages? I don't know. That's my take on it. I'd like to see that.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? I think part of the issue with wages too is the theory of succession planning and training that council has brought forward over the last couple of years here. Training is obviously an expensive endeavor, but pays off in the long run, as well as succession planning. Our reliance on contractors to fill our voids every time is very costly. And I think with extended training and succession planning, I think our reliability on contractors is going to decrease. I think we did have some reports of some succession planning and non-compliance within our water department that we needed to staff up on. Yeah, a couple things. As far as the questions go, council, are we all good with the answers there? Is there any other follow-up budget questions? Councillor Howe?
Visitor Information Center phone bill. I know we got an email on it today, but $15,000 for this phone bill over at the Visitor Information Center. That's one example. There are other phone bills within the DTR that are extravagant. And there was an explanation given is because they have the Ethernet. How does the Ethernet and phone bills cost us $15,000?
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Taggerty?
To Mayor and Council, so we have been looking, from what I understand, we have been looking at the internet and telephone, and that was one of the ones that we could see some cost savings on there. So, if I got the split in front of me, hold on a minute.
Councillor Norbury, maybe you can help me out. Ethernet?
Ethernet is for like a computer internet line. So like, beside my desk, there's a phone, and there's an Ethernet cable going from the wall to an Ethernet box that runs to a phone line to the phone. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, this is me speculating, that because there's so many lines, it has to be done through Ethernet. But I don't know.
So that's the Ethernet is the phone line modem, basically.
It's
Like different than a modem?
yeah, it's just a different type of connection.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. Ms. Tegrity?
Mayor and Council, the split, phones were costing us about 6,100, and the Ethernet 8,800. So yeah, I mean, I have asked someone to look into this and to look at our phone bills as a whole.
Okay.
But I know straight away we had 4 phone lines in there, so we're looking at cutting that cost in half. But as I said, I've given it to one of our managers who's taking a look at that.
Okay. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Sorry to go back to the wages. What's the budget, like, we have to, as per the CUPE agreement, there's like a wage increase that happens every year that we have to
Per
say
the
to,
collective
right?
agreement.
Do we know what that is? Because I mean,
We're currently in negotiations for the collective agreement right now, so we don't have the updated changes yet.
but I think
Councillor?
with that, is it incorrect to assume that increases are based on the previous agreement and just like say like the previous agreement said everyone gets 3%, so it goes 3 until it's ratified at the next agreement? Is that, or does it stay, does not increase at all?
Each agreement is different each time, so there's no real consistency with it. I think Dawson Creek settled for a 0% increase, so it's variable on each one.
What
Councillor
was our last increase to the QP and when was the active date?
Ms. Torval?
So what was that question, sorry? The last
For
increase?
the last increase through the contract?
The collective
When was the
agreement?
collective agreement, what was the percent and when was the
21?
date?
December 21? Yeah, I don't know what, we'd have to look at the collective agreement.
Okay. Councillor Kirkowka?
So since we're just on the labor and stuff like that, and maybe we can get the answer and maybe we can't tonight, come forward, is there was 3 positions that was added. Do we know what that amount has cost the taxpayers?
Ms. Torval?
Sorry, I don't know right offhand, do you? Ms. Taggerty?
It'll be something I can bring back.
We can bring that information back if council so desires.
Sure, Counselor.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that, it's like a 500K difference between this year and 2021, right? I mean, I understand where Councillor Hogg goes all the way back, but at 2021, where the actual was 5.8, we're going to 6.3, it's really 500K increase between these two. So it's $500,000. So we added 3 positions, I believe there's some amount there that, you know, we made a full number, full figure on that. So to know that information.
Okay, would you like a motion? Counselor Kirkowka.
I make a motion that we ask staff to bring back a report detailing the amount that it cost us for the 3 new job positions that were added.
For the year or for budgeted for next year?
Budgeted for 2022.
Budgeted for 2022.
I believe, my understanding before seconds, but my understanding before that council was told there was no increase for 2021. There was no questions asked about if there's an increase for 2022. I don't think we ever had that number.
Right. Seconder, Counselor Norbury, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Other questions, comments?
We got a few more just things.
Yeah, you betcha.
I do have.
Counselor
We can
Kirkowka.
just go back to page 29 that we were on earlier. Just some clarity on a couple lines there. In 2020, so we're gonna have to do it, like, in 2020, second line is CCIT sound and system upgrade was budgeted at 49.5. We spent 19.5, and that was for fairground roof funds relocated to this expense. But in 2021, we funded $5,000 there, and it was never used.
Ms. Torval.
So Mayor and Council, so the IT systems upgrade is actually in the budget for 2022. So the 30,000 left, and then I moved the 5,000 from our 2021 financials. So to make sure I had that money for us to carry over into 2022.
So currently, the upgrades have not taken place because we're still waiting on equipment. But these 2 items are carry forwards for 2022.
That's correct.
Thank you. Counselor Kirkowka.
So just curious again, why would the fairground roof funds relocated to this expense? Is that the funds we didn't spend? We added it back into there
Ms. Torval.
in the 2020 line?
So to Mayor and Council, I was here then. So when staff brought a report for the fairgrounds, we had to give you an idea where the funding was, and we asked if we could use. We knew we didn't need all that IT sounds upgrade amount. We asked if we could reallocate that amount. So I have used that amount in 2021. Sorry, too many years.
I know, that's the thing, right? Makes sense.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Howe.
On page 42 of 86 on the agenda. When we look at recycling,
You look at recycling wages for full-time and then also benefits. So in 2021, wages were about 57,000 and benefits were about 25,000. So the increase in the budget is 160,000 and 53,000. So a total increase of over $100,000 in closer to $125,000, $35,000, sorry, in recycling. So those are the questions that, is this one of those ones that we're taking money out of a different account and just putting it into the recycling account? Or is this an actual increase from 1 or 2 or 1.5 positions to 2.5 positions in recycling? And when that occurs, or if that's what's occurring, when do we have that discussion on that person is required or needed? Because that to me is, that is somebody on staff has decided to increase that amount without any conversation with council. If you have the money in your budget and you choose to move people around within departments is one story. But if you choose to put new people down in recycling and change the whole premise that recycling is affordable to the DTR, it changes it. That's saying just in wages in the DTR, our recycling is gonna cost us $316,000 just for wages next year. We only collect $80,000 from our recycling carts and $40,000 in product. We collect $120,000. That doesn't include lots of other stuff that go along with it, so. Like that, is that the type of thing that's happening without council's approval?
Ms. Torval?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As far as I know, that was ratified through council in a closed meeting.
An additional recycling.
Yes, sure. Ms. Taggarty.
To Madam Council, I'd just like to add as well, because I really like to use you, but I have also, within our full-time positions, I was able to move some of their wages to here because that's what I claim back from the regional district. So there is a little bit of that too.
Balancing.
How I know you're saying it makes it confusing when you see it from last year and then this year. But I definitely have done a little bit of that because I felt that's where those positions, particularly if I'm going to claim back from.
Yeah, that's the hard time that I'm having, especially going line by line through this, was trying to figure out the wages and trying to figure out what we're trying to do here. And realistically, in my mind, I don't think this budget we can really pinpoint and get to that accuracy level with wages because we're still trying to figure out and allocate which department they're supposed to go in, plus train our employees to also code their time properly as well. So I had a really hard time, as well as Councillor Howe, to try and figure out where we're allocating these, because it seems to me like we need another year or two to get actual numbers with this process to really see where those wages are going, because I don't see a very accurate and complete picture with the wages that we have at the moment here, both full-time and casual, honestly. Ms. Tegarty?
To Madam Council, I mean, I think they're accurate, as in, like I said before, in terms of they're accurate.
Right.
Yeah, but
That's I didn't
yeah.
mean that, yeah.
But I think, a system was started, and yeah, I'm not saying it's the best. I've had to follow from the year before, so I'm feeling the same way too. And I think maybe it's something that needs to be looked at before we move to the next year's budget.
Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. And, we go on a bit of a rabbit hole, but I think this speaks to closed discussions, and I think we can do better at releasing some information or detangling some things so that we can have a little more transparency. Because at this point in time, we are really stuck in what we can be discussing, and it shouldn't.
Yeah, most labor discussion is enclosed. Councillor Howe?
Yeah, so and that's the thing, is that we cannot pinpoint it, and what I'm trying to do is pinpoint it. So therefore, if we cannot pinpoint it down to any one area, we have to look at the total number and be comfortable with an increase of 1.2 million in wages. I am not comfortable with an increase of 1.2 million in wages. We can throw out, it's a cost of, the wages increase for the union. Yeah, sure, but, it doesn't go up, 20%. The union didn't get a 20% increase. Yeah, there's some staff positions that were created that I think is roughly in the neighborhood of $350,000, $360,000. But where does the rest of the money come from? So my question is to council, not to staff, it's to council, is that are you comfortable spending that amount of money in wages if we don't know where the money is actually being allotted to? Well, my concern is that staff is able to move money around or push it to wherever they want. So if we have a bad snow event, they can put lots more people clearing snow as compared to going and moving gravel around or something. And that's fine, and we're okay with that. What I'm not okay with is the increase in the wages. I don't care if you take a guy from the recycling building and bring him to the rec center because you're busy up there one day. I don't care if you do that, that doesn't matter to me. What I'm concerned about is that our wages go from 5.2 to 6.4. That's what my concern is. How is that happening? And we cannot pinpoint it. Very tough for me to prove a budget. Or I'm saying, I don't want to increase that. I don't want to do that. I'd just as soon say, no, keep your budget back where it was, keep your budget to the previous year at 5.8 and figure it out from there. Come back to council through the year if you get to a point in October and you're like, geez, we don't have enough money to continue to pay the people down at the recycling building. Okay, then we'll give you more money at that point. Rather than spend the money first and hope that staff is able to save the money and get it in the right position, I would rather lower our budget at this point and challenge them and ask them, get things lower, get your wages lower, let's get back in check here, use it where you need to use it, and if you gotta come back to us in November with an area that you need some more money because we underfunded it or whatever, then we look at it at that time. I'm not comfortable with increasing the wages again.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Burton. It's an interesting proposition. The only, my concern is what if at the time of the day, we decide that no, we're not gonna spend that extra money in these positions, and then we lose snow removal for 2 months, or we don't have somebody operating equipment that we need at Public Works for a month and a half, right? Like, I mean, it is a hard pill to swallow when we're looking at it, but I remember hearing that we went from a lot of casual employees to more full-time employees. I mean, it's an 8% increase. Some of that's obviously got to be with, I think, CUPE agreement, increased efficiency and operations of the district. You know, and we sit back, and we ask staff to tell us what they need so we can provide it for them to run our community. You know, this is where we're at. Yeah, and it would be nice to get a little more information, but at the end of the day, like, we're told this is what they need to run municipality at our service level. That's where we're at.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor. I think Councillor Howe is right. I think when we jump 1.2 million in a year, and I mean, when you look back in a couple of years, but I mean, you look back and it's gone up, well, almost $2 million in a very short time. And the town hasn't gotten any bigger. And I think we want to keep the same service levels, but to increase by that amount of money, to me, it would be interesting to see where and why we've jumped that much. And I don't know how, I mean, somewhere along the line, we gotta be able to figure out where we're spending all this money. I mean, is it because we have, say, 80 instead of 60 people now employed? I think it's sometimes the district is hiring, I don't know, it's almost like a hiring agency. Oh, somebody needs a job, okay, well, we'll give them a job. Well, we'll give somebody a job if we need a position. But I think we gotta be careful how much money we spend on wages. And it would be nice to see where this 1.2 came from.
Well, we can certainly ask for a report. By way of motion. Councillor Kirkhalken.
Thank you, Richard. Some of this would be added by council. And the reason I say that, we talk about, interpretive trail, when that was built, I remember asking the question, well, who's maintaining it? Are we gonna plow the snow? Are we gonna do this? Well, it gets maintained by district staff. Councillor Hall mentions it, well, we talk about adding this, interpretive center, the geo-interpretive center and stuff. Well, someone's gonna be clearing snow there, someone's gonna be shoveling snow, someone's gonna be cutting grass. Right? Cleaning, all that. Every time we add thing, we ask, well, how much does it cost to add another 3 kilometers of trail? We never get a cost of what that's gonna cost to remove the snow, sweep it in the spring. We don't get that cost. We just vote on it because it's $350 to do, or $350,000 to build trailway. We forget it's going to add extra stuff. So in my thoughts, some of the stuff that we put forward in motions last year in capital, we've added. Now I'm not sure if staff's increased positions. I know positions have been moved. Maybe there has been an increase, and maybe they'll be able to answer that one. that question. But some of it's been added by council when we make those motions to go and do stuff and build stuff and add this and add that. Like, we had no restaurant operator down at the golf course last year. Well, what did that do? It increased us because we had to run a beer cart. Right, so we had to do that, and we asked if we wanted full-time marshal while they were using the beer cart. So we've added some of that labor through our council motions on capital expenditures. Other things that have happened is when staff comes forward with capital things they want to do, not realizing that some of it may or may not include adding staff to that position. So, and everybody goes back to 1.2 because we're going back 3 years. 2 years, sorry. To me, we're looking at 500K because we're looking at an increase from 2021 to 2022. So some of that increase is from what we built last year, so, or added on, asphalt, all that. I mean, I believe it's being.
Yeah, and don't forget our 2021 census numbers, we went up 20% from 2016, so, I mean, it's a big number, 20%. It is 400 people, but still, we were the fastest growing community in the Peace region since the census, so. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I think that's, better to put it in focus. We should be looking at, we approved last year's, and we were happy with last year's. Some people might not have been. But we were happy with last year's, right? So we should be really focusing, nailing down, the 500,000, because obviously last year we were accepting, as a council we accepted it. 500,000 this year. 8%, that's the question, right? 8% difference.
Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I don't have a problem with our wages, actually. I think what it shows is that we're supporting changes that our staff are making to run a better organization. I think the positions that were hired, they came with, to me, I was clear on why, and I don't think we can prove that right away because it's gonna take time. So there was changes, there was adding people to make, everything run smoother. Maybe going forward, I think from now, I wouldn't sit here and say, okay, I want a decrease in wages at this level. I think I'm not ready to make that because I want to make sure that it works right now, and I think it hasn't been proven yet. Maybe going forward, we can say there's only going to be, it jumped a lot. So maybe next year or the years after in the budget, we say there's no, we want to see only this much of a percentage in wages or hiring. But for now, I support the staff decisions made in the hiring that's been done.
I do as well. Councillor Kirkowka.
Thank you, Richard. So I have a couple of, we talked about when we add things. One of the things we added in 2021 would have been snow clearing policy and how we pick certain sections to be number 1 rate, number 2 rate and all that. And one of them was Willow, down around the elementary school and that, making sure those were plowed and gravelled and the sidewalks were done by 8 o'clock in the morning. So the kids or the children could walk to school safely and all that, right? So that's one thing you added, because now you bring people earlier, get heavy snowfall, somebody has to come back in the afternoon, like they're probably added a position. The other question I have, Your Worship, would be, do we not do our own cleaning at the apartments that the district owns?
Ms. Torval.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We do our own cleaning for our own contractors. For the Northern Health condo that is used quite frequently by Northern Health, there is a contractor that comes in and does the cleaning, and then it's billed back to Northern Health, and it's paid for by Northern Health.
Okay. Follow up.
Yeah, so I understand they use one apartment. My understanding, majority of the time is one apartment. Kind of got that, I believe. I mean, I know they do get approval to use the other one here and there. Is that tracked? Because I look at the sheet on what page am I on there? 16. We do a lot of cleaning, our contractor does a lot of cleaning in both apartments.
Ms. Torval.
I think there are times when both of those condos are used, both the rooms or the condos are used by Northern Health.
So if it is being used by Northern Health, then we are hiring a
Yes.
janitorial to come in and do.
Yeah. It's billed back to Northern Health.
So it's just
Council.
in and out then.
Yes.
We're paying it out, getting it back. Just good to know that.
Counselor Howe?
The budget for the amount of money that we collect in taxes from our amount, is that amount, you have the roll that you multiply it by. Is it based on the previous year's rate? Is that how you're defining the amount of money? So you're going with the previous year's rate, the roll is increased, that's how much we're gonna get in taxes?
Ms. Torval?
Mr. Haggerty?
To Mayor and Council, yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I've just, obviously just said it at last year's rate, and then when we have, we discuss taxes, then it's the council to let me know if you want me to raise
Change any rates.
rates, yeah.
Counselor?
And the reason I asked that question, correct me if I'm wrong, jump in any time here so we get this done quickly.
Housing assessment for everybody in the DTR went up roughly 30%, 25, 30%.
Not mine. 8%.
I've seen some, okay,
10%? Well, a lot of people's went up a lot.
Mhm.
I've seen some big increases, talked to some people a lot. But that percent, that increases the roll, right? But if we're not gonna change the rate, normally what we do is we come in and say, last year we collected 1.2 million in residential taxes. So to collect that same amount of money this year, we multiply it by the rate. But what we're saying at this time, in this budget, is that we are multiplying the increased amount of roll of the value that everybody's houses has increased by the same rate that we had last year. That's why we have so much more tax money this year as compared to last year. Is that what's happening?
Same rate, higher assessment, correct? So then the revenue would be higher. Is that correct, Mr. Irby?
To Mayor and Council, the assessment's gone up. So I've taken that assessment, which this is the same way I've done this in 8 other municipalities, but yeah, I take the assessments, you're correct, it's gone up 188,000 with our revised roll.
Just residential?
Total in taxes. That includes,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Total,
The whole,
all classes?
whole classes.
Okay. Counselor?
again, this is because people were concerned in the DTR coming to me and talking about
Their amount that their houses went up, they were concerned that their taxes are therefore going to follow and go up. If my house has gone up 20%, my taxes are gonna go up 20%. And I have assured those people, no, that is not going to happen, because we don't do the taxes like that. We need to collect $1 million last year, collect $1 million again this year. Your rate comes down because your assessment has gone up.
That's right.
But what we're budgeting for right now is not that.
With revenue, but we haven't been able to set tax rates yet or been presented that yet.
But for us to have a balanced budget, close to a balanced budget, maybe we're getting close, we're off by $80,000 or whatever right now. When we have that discussion, where we're able to lower people's, or keep people's taxes, the amount of money that they're gonna pay the same or close to as last year, we will have to therefore lower the assessment by $180,000.
The mill rates,
The total amount collected, sorry.
right.
So, okay.
Yeah. Again, still waiting to discuss, yeah.
Sure.
And so all of those forecasts are estimates based on increased assessment this year according to the same mill rate. Mill rate, is that correct?
That's correct.
It's 20.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Councillor Lehman?
Just getting back to wages, I think with the improvement in coding, we'll have a better idea of where the money is going to. Because as they were mentioning, everything was lumped into one pot. So you didn't know how much janitorial, how much maintenance was getting. So now at least we'll be getting a better breakdown, but that won't be until next year. So that will help get some of the information on where this money is going.
Department by department,
Yeah.
yeah. Absolutely. Any other questions? Thank you for the actuals on the contracted services. That's interesting information for sure. That's quite a bit. but also needed to be budgeted for, I believe, in most of the departments in case of emergencies or something like that. A lot of them were electrical. So need any clarification on anything else? Questions? Are we ready for a recommendation? Councilor Kirkhope.
Motion
Ms. Torval?
from previous meeting.
In regards to the operating,
Wouldn't that have to be done before we approve the operating budget? Not talking turn up some motion.
The library.
the deferred library, yep, okay. Council wishes to talk about that now then? Okay, Councilor Norbury, please.
If we're gonna talk about the library, I need to step out as I have a pecuniary interest in the library.
Thank you. Pardon me? Okay. So I believe the motion deferred was for the motion to accept the library budget of $377 change. Can you have that motion by chance? Councilor
Motion
Kirkhope.
That we recess for 5 minutes so the staff have time to retrieve the motion.
Please, recess for 5, thank you. I got a leg cramp. Oh, I'm dying. Yeah.
Forget it. Yes, well, can you It's just one one, it's just a little. Do you have a?
Yeah, so the motion they made was that council sets the library budget at
Thank you.
Yep. Well, we budgeted 6, just over 6, and saved 120 actuals. So the budget's only really increased 300 last year.
But you're looking from 2019, where we went 375
That was Jen's first year, wasn't it?
We had a bunch of,
Contracts.
yeah.
Laura was contract still.
Yeah.
Very well.
Okay, are we all set? One more? Sure thing. All right, good to go. Call back to order. The library budget. We have a motion on the floor, Ms. Torval.
Yes, Mayor and Council, Ms. Butters, I'll ask you to relay the motion, please.
Mayor and Council, the motion that was deferred was that council sets the library budget at $377,093 for 2022.
Okay, thank you. Motion's on the floor again. Comments, discussion? I believe the library board presented council with some questions and answers to some questions and clarifications on some questions as well. Questions, comments? Councillor Howe?
I'm still not clear on a couple of things. So the library was able to present some type of a 200-page document that we got on Friday or something. So I didn't have enough time to review that entire document. I glanced through it a little bit. I still have some questions about the library that haven't been answered to this point. And I am in favor of not increasing the budget to 377. I'm in favor of keeping the budget where it was at 340,000
Okay.
for 2021. So it's not a decrease in the budget. It is remain the same amount as last year.
Any other comments? Is there possibly any questions I can answer, Councillor Howe?
I don't know. There was a $7,000 extra for the actuals in 2021 for a computer, as compared to every other year they budgeted $10,000, and then there's $6,500 more in 2021. That would be one question.
I believe I read that in here. I'll try and find it. Second one?
And the second one is the increase in the library material and processing from 35,000 to 60,000. Every other year is 35,000, and then in 2021 it goes up to 60,000 in actual spend.
Yes, I believe that's answered in here as well. I'm sure I read it. Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bridgman. The library's report that we received, I thought they did a good job at answering our questions. And one thing, as a counselor, I have had not one resident come up to me and say, this budget is out of line. That's one, the library provides great services, and our residents love it. And they don't give me any reason to say, no, this isn't acceptable, don't vote for this increase. So I will be voting in favor of the recommendation on the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Kirkpatrick.
I got a question back to staff. So, I mean, I've read through some of it. I didn't have as much time picking this up. I'd be curious to know when it was actually handed back into staff. And the other question I'd have is if we were to defer this again, which defers the operational budget, what's that look from staff side? And what is the negatively or the response if we do not pass the budget by May?
Ms. Torval.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll start with the first question. The information packages were dropped off early in the week with their delegation request, and we were going to be putting it on the agenda for this evening's meeting, and then we had anticipated that the agenda would be ready on Thursday, but it wasn't. So given that the agenda wasn't ready, we went ahead and put the packages on the wickets, and I believe some of them were emailed to council as well, because we didn't get them to you in time. And then we canceled the delegation at the request of council, canceled the delegation requests for this evening. With regards to the second part of that question, is the penalties for not having the budget passed on time. Ms. Taggarty, can you speak to that?
To Mayor and Council, I don't think there's a penalty as such, but I've never been late with the budget, so I think we would probably receive a letter saying, saying it's late.
Yeah, slap on the fingers
Yeah,
sort of thing.
I think that's how it would be. It's a statutory requirement for municipalities, so I would like us to follow that if we.
Okay, thank you. Follow up.
Yeah, and just if we were to defer this, how does that look for staff if that would come back? I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance. This thing arrives, I mean, I'm sorry, we have a few pages to read as well in regards to operational budget, never mind the library document.
Ms. Torval.
I guess it would depend on how much time you would be looking at. How much time do you need?
Okay. Councillor Howe, it's on the bottom of page 8 and page 9 of the package. Those answers. Oh. Don't mind. Questions, comments? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Defeated. Councillor Howe?
Put a motion on the floor that we approve the library funding for $340,000 for 2022.
Seconder? Councillor Kirkpatrick, discussion? Councillor Kirkpatrick.
Again, I kind of mentioned to see what council thought about deferring. I mean, again, I haven't had a chance to read through that package. Not so disrespect to staff by getting it out, but same aspect, I think we should have the rights to get through it. There's questions I asked, I was trying to read them as we were going here. I've read most of mine, but I haven't read all the responses that they initiated back to the rest of council's comments. So I think it's only fair to get through the document to see where it is.
Okay. I'd like to put forward Councillor Howe.
To me, I'm not in favor of deferring it anymore. The library takes up a lot of time during our budgeting process. There's a comment made to it's 2% of your budget or whatever in the document that they sent out to us. You got to make a decision on what you have. The information, the way it was presented in the different times, they came in and presented us actuals the day that we see the actuals, and we've got to make a decision on it. If you want the information to be out in front of us so that we have time to read it, you need to have it before 5 minutes before the meeting. So to me, I have the information that I need. I've looked through some stuff. I didn't see any savings through the library through COVID. That is my big concern with the library. They had opportunity to save money, and they did not save money during COVID. And that is why I think they did it through COVID at $340,000. The money we gave them, they found some creative ways to come up with some more funding. How that money was spent is up to the board and how they want to spend it. But if they wanted to choose to spend it into different areas for computers or whatever else they want to spend it on, that's entirely up to the board how they want to spend it. They managed to do it on $340,000. I am somebody who wants us to cut back. I'm not suggesting to cut the library back anymore. I'm suggesting to let it go for another year at $340,000. And we still need to find other areas in the budget to cut back a little bit. And this is not one of them. I'm just saying continue theirs the way that it was funded.
Other comments, questions? Did you want to put forward a motion?
I did put it forward.
Yeah, I just asking, he was talking about deferral. Any other comments, questions? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Defeated, thank you. Another motion? Councillor Howell?
Put a motion forward that we support the library in the sum of $350,000 for the 2022 budget. This is an increase of $10,000.
Seconder? Councillor Lehman, discussion? Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I mean, it's just throwing out numbers till we can figure something that's acceptable. I don't like that. It doesn't show me like how can the library really afford the 10,000. It seems low to me. Looking at your argument is that the library didn't save any money.
That's correct.
But yet they kept their staff on, they provided services which were beneficial. And I think through COVID, that's a great thing. If I'm an employee, I'm happy to have a job. I'm happy that I'm not making my money, and that's our thing is we want to retain our residents and give them a place to live and a place to work. So I'm having a hard time trying to figure out what the right value is. And the library I didn't read the whole 200-page report either. It came too late. I did read the questions that council asked of the library, and I thought the answers were good. $377 does sound like a lot. Is that a service level that council is willing to pay? I have no other opinion from residents saying that it's too high. I think that anybody's using the library is really happy with the services there. So when we throw out 350, I don't want to just say 350 so we can make a hasty decision. But I don't know how we're going to get to the right answer. And I'll vote against 350 as well.
Councillor Howell?
Well, 377 was not approved, 340 was not approved. So I'm trying to find a middle ground so we can move on with the library and get through the rest of the budget. That's all I'm trying to do there.
I know.
I understand that it's not perfect for what you want, certainly not perfect for what I want either, but I'm trying to meet you in the middle and try to come up with something here that works for both of us. But it is our responsibility to watch the taxpayers' money. And I don't feel like the taxpayers' money was properly spent at the library when they had an opportunity to save money. Did they keep people wages or keep them employed at the library for the entire time? Yeah, they did. They kept them employed. But did they have opportunities where they could have cut back the hours a little bit? The library was shut down. People weren't allowed in the building. Yeah, they went out and did crafts and did other things around the town, but that was an opportunity for them to save money, get money from the government, get CERB money. There was opportunities for them to save money, and they weren't able to do that. I said in the previous budget when they came in last year, if you don't have a way to save money next year, I'm not going to approve your budget going forward. I said that, and I'm sticking to my guns on that. We have to find areas, my business had to do it, you have to find areas to save money when you don't have money coming in. And to me, I'm willing to bridge the gap here to try to get them moving forward so we're not wasting so much time on just library discussions. But again, we've got to find some areas here to save some bucks in the DTR at some point.
Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. There's also the option of granting the library the $377,000 that they're looking for. And then as council, we can raise taxes to recoup the extra $40,000 that we are putting into the library. If we want to raise taxes, if we want to recoup these kind of funds, and then maybe next year we'll hear from taxpayers saying, that's maybe too much. Maybe I don't need some of the services that groups are providing. And we won't know that till we make those hard choices.
Councillor Howe?
I know that right now, that people do not want their taxes increased. And I'm telling you, their taxes are going to be increased just because of the way that we're doing the budgeting. The mill rate is the same as the previous year, and their assessments have increased. They are going to be taxed more. They're gonna have to write a check higher than the one that they wrote last year to the DTR. That is coming. So I'm trying to find areas where if we can keep that to a minimal or keep it smaller, that we can do that. And we don't have to only come up with funding by increasing taxes. We can cut a few things out of our budget. We can cut a few of our spends out of our budget. We can ask staff to dial back on the amount of wages that we're spending. There's other ways for us to do it rather than increasing taxes. 7 years in this seat, never never voted to increase taxes once, and it certainly isn't gonna happen this year. I'm gonna be looking for areas for us to continue to cut.
Councillor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor. People are gonna complain when they get something for free. That's never going to happen, or hardly ever. And I have had some people mention to me that the library budget is high. And we had the same problem last year. We were going back and forth trying to resolve where we're going to end up with the library budget. It was a fight until we finally ended up at 340. I think it was from 300 to 360, and we ended up going to 340. So somewhere in there, we've got to find a happy medium. To me, 377 is high, and I know they provide a lot of services, and people get services for free. But I just don't see, we keep giving away too much stuff. And I just, sooner or later, we're gonna have to end. And like Councilor Howe says, so we increase taxes to fund the library and fund all the other spends that we have. I just don't think it's right.
I didn't say increase taxes, just sort of.
Huh?
You said, like Councillor House said, to increase
Councillor
taxes.
Krokalka.
I didn't say to increase taxes.
Thank you.
Just to clarify what you said there.
So I know when the report came out, or it was Rosen reported in regards to the library report, it was staff brought forward. Let me tell you, the residents paid attention to that. People couldn't believe how much per capita we pay for the library. People were quite shocked to realize that. Sure, they don't complain about 377 because a lot of people haven't paid attention to that. That's the ask from the library. Throw that number out when you have conversations with people on what we're funding and how we fund things, whether it's the grant and aids, the fee for services. And people are quite shocked how much we put out. They only complain to us after the budget's all done. Not before, because they're not paying attention. I mean, and I think Councillor Howe's right. It's our job to make sure we're spending those tax dollars right. I have a hard time supporting the 377. I mean, I haven't gone through the CAPSA, and I apologize to them for not going through it, but I have a hard time when it's delivered to me on a Friday. Not against staff, just so staff knows it's not against them, but I mean, when we talk about that, and I look at the budget previous, what our amount was and what their actual budget was, I mean, they can go after grants too. And I think, with 350, I think it's an increase. It's not what they want, it's $27,000 less, but I think that's, it's an increase.
So the reason the library board has increased the ask this year is because the grant funding that they usually secure every year isn't going to be available this year. The total budget for the library last year was $400,000. They were able to make that $400,000 with a $50,000 summer jobs grant from the federal government. So that grant funding, including the minimum wage increase, is the reason for the $37,000 that we're deliberating on right now. And as they've argued, the board has mentioned in the previous delegation, grant funding isn't sustainable. It isn't sustainable funding. It's a gamble whether or not you get it or not. So that's the reason for the $37,000 increase. And it's interesting because I've heard some of council mention how that amount of money is peanuts, and we could write that check every day for something that's important. But for a lot of residents in this community, the library is incredibly important. For people that don't have internet, they can access the internet at the library. For people that need the other kinds of supports, they have those supports at the library. It's an incredible service for this community, and we're deliberating on $37,000. I think we can look elsewhere, in my opinion. I'm in favor of the original ask. Any other comments, questions? Call the question on the motion for $350. All in favor? Opposed? Defeated. Thank you. Put a motion out to set the library budget for 2022 at $360,000. Seconder? Councillor Kirkowka. Discussion? Again, I'm trying to find a happy medium as well. Councillor Kirby?
I think that recommendation, I would vote in favor of. It's putting it closer to the 2021 budget, still gives them opportunity to grant fund for some of the extra monies needed. And
Any other comments, questions? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Sorry, oh, Chris, yep. Okay. Any other comments, questions in regards to operating capital and special projects budget? Okay, I'll put forward the motion that council accept the 2022 operating draft number 2 and the updated 2022 capital and special projects budget. Seconder, Councillor Kirkowka, discussion. I think we've identified a lot of questions that need further clarification, and I think having some patience with our CFO to really learn the ins and outs of this organization, I think identifying those concerns and questions are going to spark interest in her as well, and be able to answer a lot of those questions that we have moving forward, I think. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I'm voting in favor of this, as I've had to explain to people, like, we're in a bit of a transition year, people digging into the numbers line by line, and like, we're in a bit of a transition year, and we're trying to figure out where we're spending, what we're spending where, and the numbers may be a little deceiving on the line by line basis, but overall, you know, I think we saw a little while ago the 3% increase, so overall, so happy with it.
Okay. Ms. Torval?
Mayor, I believe that this should be, the motion should be that you accept the budgets as amended. Because we've done some changes to them.
Yes, yeah, you're right.
We pulled some things out and.
You're right. So I'll make an amendment to add as amended to the motion. Seconder. Councillor Kirby, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Councillor Howe?
So this, at this point for the budget, just for clarity, when we approve it at this point, there's no going back on the amount of money that we are spending.
Ms. Torber?
Integrity?
To Mayor and Council, I say no, like, you're agreeing with the amendments that were made tonight and where we're at now. That being said, there could be something that comes in between now that I may need to bring to you, whilst we're talking about tax rates. So it's not the final until I bring the bylaw.
Right, but the amount, for the amount that we are going to spend is pretty close. Like the amount that we're gonna spend, like we don't know how much money we're gonna get in taxes till we have the tax rate discussion. But we certainly do know at this point, after we approve this tonight, that we know how much we're spending. There may be a couple things that come in here and there,
Yes,
and at this
you're
point,
correct.
are we surplus or deficit budget? We're $80,000 deficit at this point till we look at tax rates, or more, or higher.
To Mayor and Council, so with the adjustments that we've just taken off, we're pretty close. I think I'm about 5,000 adrift here. I would just like to run over the PRA funding with you though, because I feel that's something I kind of feel I want to explain to you. I've worked with other fair share agreements, so I feel like I need to do some more work on this one and make sure that we constantly bring that back to council. Because how it works, we kind of bring the whole money in, and then we ask for approval for capital projects. But for me, that's a concern because I want to know that they're not going to take the money back. So this is why I did this paragraph here. So I felt it was important to council to know it's still dependent on going to the PRA people and asking if you're going to deviate.
For adjustments.
And at the moment, because the childcare project is now out of the figures, if I had to come back to council again, there could be a chance that I'm coming back asking for money from another pot. So I just, if you've got any questions on that part, I know it is kind of confusing, but like I said, I think it's something that we should bring it back to council regularly.
Yeah.
And I don't have the history on when the capital plan was set for the PRA. You may remember, but we've not been here. I don't have that information.
It was early 2019, I believe. So you had mentioned in here, 1.89 is roughly what we take in, but because of the childcare facility grant not being approved, our allocation of the PRA funding has dropped to 1.29.
It has.
So we have that opportunity to transfer capital money to allocate it to the PRA funding, correct?
That's correct, Mayor and Council. I feel that I'm going to have to now take it back to the PRA administrators and say that, well, that this project has been pulled out, but can we use the money for these projects? And they let us do that in 2021 when I had to report on actuals. And they let me deviate. I say I deviated. I didn't deviate from the capital plan, but I just brought some purchases for fleet forward.
Right.
So, but I just didn't want council. There could be a chance that I would come back to council and say, if the PRA people didn't allow us, then I may need to ask for a transfer in surplus, which is why I wanted to mention that obviously we have our surplus figures now.
Right. Yes, you mentioned here the staff requesting a council consider a transfer from the 21 surplus to balance the 2022 budget. So that's option that we have, correct?
Yes. And it's very open-ended. I just want to be transparent and.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. Any questions in regards to the PRA funding, council? It is kind of confusing for sure. Councillor Howell.
So just for clarity, we cannot go back from this point on our spending. Like we don't have, like when we look at the tax rate one, if our total spend is $22.4 million and we need to come up with $22.4 million, but we can only come up with 22 if we don't increase the taxes, are we allowed to go back into this to find areas to cut $400,000 if we approve it at this point? Or if we approve it at this point, we can't go back.
You can reconsider your motion. You
Right.
wanna Revisit.
Okay. Or we could just defer it till next meeting when we see the tax rates.
It's not bylaw.
For the reconsideration though, somebody voting in favor would need to bring it back to reconsider, correct? There's a bit of rules in that regard, whether, rather than a deferral motion, we'll just keep it in limbo until we see the tax rates. Not up to her. It's up to council. Councillor Kirkhalka.
Put a motion on defer.
Motion to defer, seconder. Councillor Howe. Discussion. Councillor
And
Kirkhalka.
then the reason I'm doing that is then it gives us a chance to look at it. If there is, I mean, maybe it's a bigger number than we think. If we decide not to raise, we decide to lower that to make it the same amount. We could actually be in a deficit a lot more than here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. No, and I agree with this, to be honest. I think there's more information to come as far as tax rates go in the assessments. And, it'll put together the whole picture instead of just part of it. And I would like the option to come back to this and make changes if necessary too, so be supportive of that. Next meeting's May 2nd, correct?
The next regular meeting. Yeah.
Regular for Ms. Torval,
Right, would council like to set another budget meeting tonight?
more than likely. Okay, so motion to defer. Called question, all in favor? Carried, opposed? Carried, thank you. And schedule of meetings. Council wish to have another budget meeting? Councillor Kirkhalka,
Yeah, just back to the staff there, if they can give us some suggestions when they're prepared.
Ms. Torval.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. We were kind of anticipating this today, and then speaking with our CFO, Ms. Savagery, we feel that May 3rd would be a good turnaround time.
Okay. Council in favor, Councillor Howell?
Can we push that out to May 10th? The last thing we need to do is tax rates and then look at this as a, that's all we got left to do, right?
Ms. Torval?
It's pushing it kind of late.
For
Still,
works in progress, we have tax rates and the operating and special, correct?
yes. And then there's
3 readings and adoption. The readings and adoption are separate meetings,
Yes,
and it all has to be done by the 13th.
but it's 13th, yes, that's correct.
There was planned on the regular council meeting on the Monday, the May 2nd, to bring budget info as well, correct? That was tax rates, I thought I read.
We were going to try and have it ready for them, but we discussed it a bit today, and May 3rd would be.
As far as the agenda being fairly packed that May 2nd? Or
No, it's just a matter of holding up the agenda,
holding up the agenda?
having the information ready for the agenda, because we do the agenda on Wednesday,
Thursday, yeah.
right, so for Thursday, yeah, the latest.
Councillor Howell?
The reason I say it is we could have the information available on the 3rd. We've got a week to look at it, ask questions, get answers back from staff, rather than coming here on the 3rd, not have enough time with regular council meeting questions, not have enough time to review it. And NCLGA convention is that same week as well, that people are attending that, or what's going on with that. But to me, it gives us more time to get the information out to us a week ahead of time. They say they could have it ready for the 3rd, have it for the weekend previous to that. Get all your questions out, ask all the stuff, get the assumptions out. If our tax rates are going up, get it out there so everybody can think about that. And then come back in ready to make a decision with the information that we have.
So we would be looking at, if that was
Or the 9th.
suggestion, I mean, the 9th is a possibility as well, but we would be, after this next meeting, we would be looking at 2 more meetings to finish the readings and adoption. So we would need 1 meeting for the readings, another meeting the next day, 24 hours, I believe, for adoption. So if we want to wait till that week of May 8th, we're going to be looking at meetings every night, except Friday. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I think time, unfortunately, I think time is of the essence. I think we got to do it on the 3rd. I believe you're going to the NCLGA, so hopefully you can call in and we could, if we have any questions of staff, they can get it back to us via email. We can send it out, but time is of the essence, I think, so we should be doing it as soon as possible because, again, I thought we'd be pretty close tonight and we weren't. So might have more things arise on the 3rd. So I'd like to make a motion that we add a special budget meeting of council on the 3rd of May.
May. Seconder. Councillor Kirby, discussion. Councillor Howell.
I will not be available on the 3rd. Neither will the mayor.
Councillor Kirkcalka.
Yeah, I was just gonna about to ask if you're gonna be
I'm sure I can call in.
By call, sorry, you can't be here. Sorry.
I'm sure I'll be able to call in. Any other comments, questions? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Defeated? Tied? Councillor Kirkcalka.
available. Motion for that we have a meeting on May 10th.
Seconder, Councillor Howell. Discussion? Councillor Kirkcalka.
And the reason I say that, if you're calling in, you may not be able to see our screen, which we usually have a chance to be able to move the tax rates on the screen. We might not have that chance to see that.
Well, we did that with Mr. Wall. That's quite a spreadsheet to put together. I'm not sure if staff is prepared to do that or not.
I'm not sure, I just assumed
Yeah,
we had to play with that to see where the rates would be.
that was with Mr. Wall though. Ms. Torval, are you planning any kind of a spreadsheet, worksheet as far as tax rates go?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, in the past, we had the ability to change percentages, either up and down, and then they would carry over to the spreadsheet column. Okay, call the question on meeting on the 10th. All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. I'd like to motion that we're gonna have to set 11th and 12th as well. Is that correct, Ms. Torval, for readings and adoption?
Let me just confer with Ms. Taggerty, because it's going to take some time to get this information into the bylaws, depending on if there are further changes. So, the 10th and the 11th?
We have to submit by the 13th. It's told 13th.
12, 24 hours.
Ms. Torval?
She's not sure because she's never had to do anything this close before, so.
Well, we certainly have some unusual circumstances right now, so I mean, we're doing our best. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. What about we do something on the 6th? I mean, I wasn't against the 10th, but I mean, we are priced in. We have to make our decision on the 10th to meet the timelines. I mean, if the concern is the mayor can't be here on the 3rd, the NCLJ convention doesn't continue on the Friday. Can we? Is the 6th reasonable? I mean, I understand we all want to be a part of the budgeting process, but we're holding it up because,
Yeah, no, I think the 6th is reasonable. Councillor Howell?
What about a swap with the budget meeting from the 10th to the 9th? Change the P&P to the 10th. Doesn't buy us a lot of time, but it's an extra day. And then you cancel the P&P if you get really behind you.
We're still looking at 2 extra meetings that week. Whether or not the bylaw can be prepared overnight, I don't know. Councillor Kirkcalka.
So I understand instead of doing night meetings, we can also just do meetings in the morning on Thursday and Friday. Preset them for 9 AM or whatever it is, they have time, whether, even if you move the meeting on the 9th or the 6th or whatever. Put them at 9 o'clock on the Thursday, the 12th, and Friday, the 13th, it gives you the 24 hours. You'd set the 24-hour after the 3 readings on the 12th, you know it's 9:30, you'd set the next meeting for 9:30, 24 hours.
Want to motion that, please? Councillor?
Yep, put a motion on the floor that we preset budget readings for May 12th at 9 AM. And then to set a time for May 13th after the readings are done.
Set a time for the 13th.
For the 13th after the readings are done.
So just put a placeholder in, but don't have a time yet
Depends on how
for
long it
the
takes.
24 hours? Yeah, okay. 24 hours afterwards, I see what you're saying. Seconder? Councillor Norbury, discussion? Councillor Norbury?
Yeah, staff, that'll work.
Ms. Torval, any comments?
I'll attempt.
I do kind of like that idea of switching the 9th and 10th meetings. So I'll make a motion that we, sorry. Call the question on Councillor Kirkcalka's motion of May 12th and 13th. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Make a motion that we switch the policies and priorities meeting from May 9th to May 10th, and the special budget meeting from May 10th to May 9th. Seconder, Councillor Kirkcalka. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Then I guess that'll give us an opportunity, if we don't get through it on the 10th or on the 9th, we can move or make a placeholder in the P&P probably. Okay, any other issues there, council? And the community forest shareholders meeting is what time, Ms. Torval?
5.
5 o'clock. All right. Question and answer period. Ms. Sauger, please.
I'd like to thank you for appointing me to the library board first.
Pleasure.
Thank you. And when I looked at the budget and I saw a shortfall, I have a question regarding spending. You do the fee for service for the visitor center at the Geo Park and the museum and Forever Young and the hospice, etc. And I understand, or I know of one of the organizations that was funded throughout COVID when they were not operating. Is that amount credited to the budget of 2022, that you have got the money back from them for not having operated during that period of time?
Not that I'm aware of. Ms. Torval, are you aware?
Which organization are we referring to?
Ms. Sauger?
Well, I know for a fact that the Forever Young was funded throughout COVID and they were not operating, so they were not paying a coordinator and they were not paying for the janitor service. Certainly your phone and your your internet, etc., have to be paid. But these were funded, and my understanding is that they received the money and didn't have to, and I could be wrong, but I understand that they received the money and did not have to repay it, even though it wasn't spent on what was specified.
Okay, we'll probably need to look into it further. Ms. Torval, as far as grant funding, do we get, information back from the nonprofits, in regards to the grant funding, like their financial statements and?
Do.
Can you clarify on what's required, please? For them to report back?
They have to submit their financial statements quarterly, because they get paid quarterly, their, the grant money.
Okay.
It's not paid in lump sum, so it's paid quarterly.
Paid quarterly? So the Forever Young Society would have been still in existence during COVID, just not operating at the Willow Hall because of the restrictions, correct?
That's my understanding.
Right. So I think it's an assumption that they would be not using all of their grant money, but it is still a yearly grant for that organization that continues to operate, as far as I understand. But we'll have to look into it a bit further.
Okay.
And we can get back to Ms. Sauger about it? Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions? No? Okay. And Ms. Torval, did you receive any questions by email?
No, there's.
Okay, thank you. Adjournment, please. Councillor Kirkowka,
Resolution 25th, 2022 special budget council meeting be adjourned.
seconder. Councillor Lehman, all in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you.